Shalom. This video is about Islam and Judaism to compare and contrast. I think for Jews today, one of the main problems is that we hear so many voices out of Islam saying terrible things about Jews and Judaism. Commonly accepted that the average sermon on Fridays in the mosque around the world is anti-Semitic, and we have the president of Iran saying kill Jews and wipe out Israel, but it hasn't always been that way, and I know that's not the true heart of Islam. And so let's just talk about Islam and Judaism. First of all, Moses was in the Exodus from Egypt was about 1300 BCE. Abraham was about 500 years before that, 1800 BCE. And so you have a couple thousand years of history before Muhammad came on the scene. In fact, about 2,600 years of Jewish history before Muhammad. So Judaism is a very old religion, and Muhammad in about 700 decided that he found a new revelation and had some new insight. So what are the differences and similarities? Well, first the similarities. Both Judaism and Islam have a series of religious law. Jews call it halakha. Muslims have a different name for it. We both have daily prayers. We pray 3 times a day. Muslims have 5 prayers a day. We have dietary rules. In fact, Muslims can eat the kosher slaughtered meat. So we share that in common. And both are purely monotheistic faiths. In fact, in the Middle Ages, the rabbis clearly ruled that Islam was not idolatry. It's purely monotheistic. So what are the major differences between them? Well, Muslims believe that Muhammad's Quran supersedes the Torah and Judaism, and we completely reject that. Nothing supersedes Judaism and the Torah. They're certainly entitled to have their own religion, as are Christians. In fact, if you want to see my video on the differences between Judaism and Christianity, that's JewU 182. We also have a video on how non-Jews can achieve salvation, which is JewU number 155. Those might be helpful videos if you haven't seen them already. Now, in addition, the Muslims said that the Jews doctored up the Torah, we changed things, that it was really Ishmael that Abraham went to sacrifice. There's no evidence for that. It's completely absurd. All the evidence is that we've continued to maintain the manuscripts faithfully. And so Maimonides, living in a Muslim world, issued the principles of faith, and it says clearly, as a Jewish principle of faith, that the entire Torah is the same that Jews have always had, and that Moses is the chief prophet. Not Muhammad for us, it's Moses. We completely reject it. Now, Muslims can believe whatever they want as long as they're decent people, but we reject categorically the idea that the Torah is doctored to change the story, just as easily to believe that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years after, thousands of years after we had the Torah already, that the Muslims changed the story. They have their own reading of the text. In addition to that, we need to point out that the Jews have been very indebted to Muslims through the centuries. In fact, one of the greatest periods of Jewish history was called the Golden Age of Spain, before the Christians took over in Spain, which was a terrible period for Jews. Jews enjoyed living with Muslims. In fact, it's through the Arabic translations of some of the great philosophers of the Greeks that the Jewish thinkers in that period became familiar with them. And some of the great Jewish scholars of the Middle Ages, Saadia Gaon, Bachya ibn Bakuda, Judah Halevi, and even Maimonides wrote their philosophical works in Arabic. And perhaps it's even been suggested that Maimonides' major code of Jewish law, the Mishnah Torah, was influenced by Arabic codes about the same period. And much of medieval Jewish poetry was influenced by the Muslims. In fact, one of my professors of medieval liturgy at the Jewish Theological Seminary, Professor Ray Shinlin, wrote many books on this, including Wine, Women, and Death, about Jewish poetry of that period and how it was influenced by the Muslims. And in fact, Bachya ibn Bakuda's great book, Duties of the Heart, was strongly influenced by the Sufi asceticism of his day. So we completely reject Islam as not a religion for Jews, but that's not to say that Islam isn't a good religion for Muslims, as long as they're peaceful and law-abiding and follow the laws of the sons of Noah, and they follow their religious law, and they keep peace and don't hurt anybody. It's a very good religion to that extent. And I know that the overwhelming majority of Muslims want to live that way and are ashamed of the suicide bombers and the murderers and the cries out that Jews are beneath contempt, kind of the Hitler ideas. So we pray we live in a world of peace. There's certainly a huge amount of relationship and similarity between the two basic monotheistic religions in this regard. We should celebrate what we have in common and play down the differences and live together peacefully in a world and celebrate each other's uniqueness and the contributions that we both have made to the world.